Have you ever heard a voice and thought to yourself that it does not sound real? It feels different. Something that feels familiar, like something a human could do, but synthetic. That feeling has a history, and it starts earlier than you think. Before we talk about pop stars, concerts, and internet drama, we need to start how we got here. We need to start about a question that musicians and scientists have been obsessed with for decades. Can a machine be made to sing? Not just play notes autonomously, not just reproduce sounds, but sing. With breaths, with phrasing, with something that feels like emotion. For a long time, this answer was no, not really. In the 1950s and the 1960s, researchers were already experimenting with voice synthesis. At places like Bell Labs, scientists were teaching room-sized computers how to approximate human speech. In 1961, speech researchers John Larry Kelly Jr. and Carol Lochbaum, while the musical accompaniment was programmed by Max Matthews, one of the founding fathers of computer music, made an IBM mainframe sing Daisy Bell.
Daisy, Daisy, get me your answer. I'm crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a marriage, but you look sweet upon the feet of a bicycle built for two.
Marking the first time a computer produced a recognizable song with words. But it wasn't music. It was just a proof of concept. Early synthesis could vaguely resemble human speech, but it lacked the one thing it needed, which, ironically enough, is imperfection. It was cold and calculated, but it was a beginning. The idea existed, but the technology did not. We fast forward to the 1980s and the 1990s. Technology involving music is growing, and it's growing fast. Digital synthesizers are everywhere. Sampling is transforming how records are made. MIDI is connecting machines together in ways we thought were impossible just a decade earlier. Producers are no longer just recording sounds, they are designing them. And so with new technology came new questions. A particular question stood out. What if instead of sampling a real singer, you could just build one? Researchers tried to bring this question into reality, but they kept stopping at the same point each time. The problem that was stopping them was always the same. Human voices don't follow strict rules. As for human voices, they bend between the notes, they strain, they breathe in places that are not perfectly timed. This was the issue, which ironically enough, was teaching a machine imperfection. And teaching something that is always calculated felt almost impossible. In 2004, a company called Zero G became the first to release a product built on Yamaha's new engine. Wait, not quite. Let us back up just one more time. Before Vocaloid became a product to give voices to machines, before it had a logo, before it had a user interface, it started as a research collaboration. In 2000 at Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona, Spain, researchers were working alongside engineers at Yamaha Corporation to solve the problem of synthesized singing. Leading this project on Yamaha's side was engineer Hideki Kimochi. He took his approach in a different direction, almost backwards to the initial question. Instead of trying to build a voice, what if we sampled real voices instead? Things seem to be going backwards from progression, with thousands of controlled vocal samples. Every note, every vowel, and every consonant. But for something feeling backwards, it moved things forward just enough to break past that wall that others were stopping at. They built a system that could cut and slice these recordings apart and reassemble them with astonishing precision. The pitch could be altered, the timing adjusted, with vowels being stretched and breath being manipulated, all controllable, all independently. They finally broke that wall. It worked. Not as they imagined or hoped for, but it worked. Yamaha saw the potential, licensed, and refined the engine. They even gave it a code name during development. They called it Daisy, named after the very song that John Larry Kelly Jr. made a machine sing back in 1961. And in 2004, the first commercial version of Vocaloid was released. But right here is where most people's history of Vocaloid begins and simultaneously ends. For they think she was the first, but she was not. But before we get to her, it is worth knowing that the very first products built on Yamaha's engine were not characters at all. They were called Leon and Lola, released in January 2004 by a UK company called Zero G. No faces, no personalities, no backstory. Just vocal libraries aimed at professional music producers. A third one followed later that year in July 2004. Her name was Miriam, based on the voice of British singer Miriam Stockley. Still no face, still no personality, still just a tool. But the engine was proving itself across multiple voices now, and that mattered. They were not bad, they were just invisible. Outside of niche production circles, no one knew they existed. Nobody was drawing fan art of them. Nobody was writing stories about them. They were software, but they proved the engine worked. And that was enough for what came next. Before the one, there were two, both using Yamaha's Vocaloid engine. Released in November 2004 by Krypton Future Media, was Meiko. Warm and mature feeling female voice. Her voice belonged to a real person, a singer named Meiko Hygo, whose name, not coincidentally, inspired the character's own. Her character design was simple. Red outfit and short brown hair. Almost adult-like in way later Vocaloids wouldn't be. She sold around 3,000 copies, and for a niche music production software in 2004, that was pretty good. But outside of niche productions, nobody noticed. Then, in February 2006, our second one arrived. Kaito, male voice, gentle, almost melancholic, blue scarf. He was not as interesting as Meiko, and did not sell very well. In fact, his initial sales were just low enough that he was widely considered a commercial failure. At this point, the future of character-based Vocaloids from Krypton Future Media felt uncertain. So take a moment to realize what I'm about to say. The company that would eventually reshape online music culture was not riding on success. The company was just experimenting with what they can do, and with what they can do was not doing so well. But here is the thing about these two that get overlooked. Meiko and Kaito built the foundation. For around these two, a small but very passionate community began to form. Producers began experimenting with their own voices. Artists illustrated them in new outfits and new worlds. Fans wrote stories, comics, early music videos. It was a modest and contained community, but fragmented. But something very important started happening. These were not being treated like the software that they were. They were being treated like characters. They had personalities, and not because the software gave them one, but because the fans did. And that was new. The idea that a virtual character with a synthetic voice could inspire real human emotion was quietly being proven possible. The scale was small, but the concept worked. No one in that small, contained community could have known how big it was about to become. The year is now 2007, and Krypton Future Media went back to the drawing board. From the mixed results of Mako and Kaito, they learned. They learned to understand the technology better. They learned about their niche community better. And from this, they were building something entirely new. A second-generation engine. One that could do things the first never could. They called it Vocaloid 2, and they finally had a new voice to go with it. Clear, youthful, and bright. All being recorded from a voice actress, Saki Fujita. This was the start of something new. Something that wouldn't go quietly into obscurity. This is the start of Hatsune Miku.
There is a flower within my heart. Daisy, Daisy, planted one day by a glancing dart, planted by Daisy Bell. Whether she loves me or loves me not, sometimes it's hard to tell. Yet I am longing to share the lot of beautiful Daisy Bell. Daisy, Daisy, give me your heart to do. On earth crazy, hope fall in love with you. It won't be a stylish mere grace. I can't afford the courage that you